$5.37. That is all Sofia Pierce has left. Not 5,000. Not 500. $5 and a handful of change scattered across the back counter of Giuseppe's diner at 3:22 in the morning, and she is counting it again because maybe her trembling hands miscounted the first time, and the second time, and the third. The fluorescent lights hum above her head like a dying animal. Outside, November rain hammers the San Francisco streets, turning the neon signs into fractured reflections on wet pavement. The diner is closed. The kitchen is dark. She is alone with the register and the crushing mathematics of survival. $5.37. $65,000 due in 7 days. Sofia's hands are shaking as she returns the money to the register drawer. Her reflection stares back at her from the chrome coffee maker, a woman of 28 who looks 40, her dark hair pulled back so tightly it stretches the skin at her temples, her uniform stained with the grease and coffee of a 14-hour shift. The white orthopedic shoes on her feet are cracked at the heels. Her fingernails are filed down to nothing. There are no rings on her fingers, no watch on her wrist, nothing to sell, nothing to pawn. She has already sold everything of value 3 years ago. The eviction notice sits on the counter, tucked beneath the register tape. She does not need to read it again. The words are burned into her memory like a brand. $65,000. 7 days. Harold Brennan's signature at the bottom, looping and deliberate, the signature of a man who has evicted hundreds of people and slept soundly every single night. She has been waitressing at Giuseppe's for 8 years. $65,000 is beyond calculation, beyond imagining, beyond the realm of possible. It exists in the same category as landing on the moon or discovering she is secretly a millionaire, a narrative reserved for other people, for people who were born into luck, for people like Harold Brennan. The rain intensifies. Thunder rolls across the bay, and Sofia closes her eyes. She thinks of Oliver in the apartment 3 blocks away, asleep in the twin bed they share because there is only one bedroom and she is his mother and this is how survival looks. He is 5 years old. He still believes that everything will be okay because she tells him so, because her job as a mother is to be the only solid thing in his world, even when the world is collapsing. A sound cuts through the rain. Voices. Raised, angry, unmistakable in their violence. Sofia moves to the back window. Through the glass, she can see into the alley behind the diner, where the rain falls in sheets and the brick walls on either side channel the water into rivers at street level. 3 men in black suits stand in the center of that alley, their shoulders broad, their movements deliberate. They surround a smaller figure, Mr. Kim, the owner of the corner market, a man who has been kind to Sofia, who sometimes lets her buy bread at half price when she comes in with Oliver, who never asks questions about why she is always counting coins. The lead man raises his fist. Mr. Kim puts his hands up, shaking, his voice too small to hear through the diner window. Sofia's body moves before her mind catches up. She unties her apron as she walks. She walks through the kitchen, past the silent grill, past the cooling coffee urns. She pushes open the back door and steps into the November night without a coat, without hesitation, without any clear plan beyond the simple fact that Mr. Kim has been kind to her and these men are not. The rain is cold. It soaks through her uniform immediately, plastering the fabric to her ribs. Her white orthopedic shoes splash in the puddles, and the sound echoes off the brick walls like a weapon. The 3 men turn. They see her. Their expressions shift from violence to confusion. "Step back inside," the lead man says. His voice is rough, casual, the voice of someone accustomed to being obeyed. A scar runs from his left eye to his jaw, pale against his dark skin. "This is not your business, little girl." Sofia does not step back. She steps forward instead, placing herself between the man and Mr. Kim. She is 5'3". She weighs maybe 120 pounds. She is wearing a stained apron and orthopedic shoes. She is no threat to anyone. But she is standing there. "Touch him again," she says, and her voice is steady, carved from stone, "and I call the cops. I do not care what happens to me." Silence. Even the rain seems to pause. The scarred man laughs. His companions laugh with him, that synchronized laughter of men who have been given permission to find humor in danger. He steps toward her, and his hand reaches out, not toward Mr. Kim anymore, but toward Sofia's arm, and his fingers close around the wet fabric of her sleeve. She twists. He is larger, stronger, but she is desperate, and desperation is a drug that sharpens the body into something faster than it should be. Her arm wrenches free from his grip, and she falls backward into Mr. Kim, and she does not move away. She stands there. Stands there. The scarred man's jaw tightens. He raises his fist. For a moment, Sofia sees the entire trajectory, the punch, the impact, the way her vision will explode into stars, the way she will fall, the way Oliver will wake up tomorrow and his mother will not come to pick him up from school because she is in the hospital, because some kind man from the corner market will have to explain where she went. But the fist does not fall. The scarred man lowers his hand. He exchanges a look with his companions, a look that contains something like respect and something like warning. He steps back, and then they are all stepping back, and then they are walking away into the rain, disappearing into the darkness beyond the alley's mouth. The sound of an engine starting. The sound of tires moving. Mr. Kim gasps something in Korean, and then he is running, and then Sofia is alone in the alley with the rain and her own breathing and the sudden understanding that she has just done something dangerous without thinking. She slides down the brick wall. Her back meets the cold wet surface, and she sits, and her legs give out beneath her, and finally, the tears come. They are hot and desperate and 8 years overdue, running down her face and mixing with the rain and salt and regret and the terrible weight of $5.37. That is when the car door opens. Across the street, hidden in the shadows of a black Bentley with tinted windows, Rafael Caruso has been watching. He has been watching the rain streak the glass. He has been watching the 3 men move into the alley. He has been watching this woman in a stained apron place herself between violence and a stranger. He has been watching her stand when standing was the most dangerous thing she could do. His Lieutenant Carlo leans forward from the driver's seat, his hand already moving toward the ignition. "Boss, she is going to get herself killed. Should we move?" Raphael raises one hand for silence. His fingers are adorned with a silver ring, a signet ring bearing the Caruso family crest, a lion rampant on a field of black. He is 46 years old. His dark hair is silvered at the temples. A scar runs from his right eye to his cheekbone, the result of a betrayal orchestrated by his own brother 17 years ago, a betrayal that taught him the price of love and the value of control. His suit is Italian silk, charcoal gray, worth more than this woman's monthly rent. His watch costs more than her car. Everything about him whispers power, whispers danger, whispers the kind of money that buys silence and loyalty in equal measure. But his dark eyes are fixed on the woman collapsing against the brick wall. "She stood," he says quietly. No one stands anymore. Carlo does not respond. He knows better than to speak when Raphael is thinking. The rain continues. Raphael opens the car door and steps out into the November night. His cashmere coat, worth $40,000, tailored in Milan, lined with silk the color of blood, falls open as he moves. He does not rush. Each step is deliberate, measured, the footfalls of a man who has never had to hurry because the world waits for him. Sofia hears the footsteps before she sees him. She looks up, her eyes raw, her face streaked with rain and tears. She sees a tall man approaching, sees the cut of his suit, sees the scar, sees the expression in his eyes that suggests he is used to being feared. He crouches in front of her. Not kneeling. Not sitting. Crouching, like a general surveying a battlefield, like a predator assessing prey. "What is your name?" His voice is deep and solid like an oath, like something carved in stone and left to weather the centuries. Sofia's throat closes. She cannot make her lips form the words. This man is dangerous in a way the other men were not. Their danger was physical, immediate, the danger of a fist. This man's danger is structural, systemic, the kind of danger that erases people and leaves no evidence behind. "Sofia," she manages. My name is Sofia Pierce. He extends one hand. In it, he holds a handkerchief, white linen, monogrammed with the letters RC. She takes it and presses it to her face, and it smells like expensive cologne and leather and a world she does not belong in. I am Raphael Caruso, he says. And you are going to tell me why you stood in front of men who could break you like a promise. The alley is silent except for the rain. Somewhere in the city, Oliver sleeps. Somewhere in a building downtown, Harold Brennan sits at a desk covered in eviction notices, counting money that belongs to people who will never own anything. Somewhere in a penthouse with a view of the bay, Evelyn Blackwell makes a phone call to Harold Brennan, and her voice is sweet like poison, and she says words that will change everything. But in this moment, in this alley, Sofia Pierce sits against a brick wall and meets the dark eyes of the most dangerous man in San Francisco, and she tells him the truth. Because he was kind to me, she says. And because no one else was going to. Raphael Caruso does not smile. But something shifts in his expression, something ancient and protective, something that has not been triggered in 17 years, not since the night his brother betrayed him and taught him that loyalty is a luxury only fools can afford. He stands. He reaches down. He does not ask permission. Come with me, he says. It is time for you to stop being invisible. The clock above Giuseppe's diner reads 6:03 in the morning when Sofia Pierce pulls her son from sleep. November cold has seeped through the cracked window of their studio apartment on Mission Street, turning their breath visible in the darkness. Oliver, 6 years old, clutches a stuffed rabbit whose fur has been rubbed thin by years of holding. She whispers his name 3 times before his eyes open, confused and slow. We have to get ready, baby, she says, and there is no hesitation in her voice even though her hands are shaking. The apartment is 240 square feet. The kitchen counter is also the dining table, is also the desk where she fills out applications to jobs that never call back. On top of everything sits the eviction notice, creased from her reading it 57 times. $65,000. 7 days remaining. The numbers have stopped feeling like numbers and started feeling like a noose tightening around her throat. Sofia pulls on her uniform, white button-down shirt with a small stain near the 3rd button that no amount of washing can remove, black pants with a frayed hem, and orthopedic shoes that cost her 2 weeks of tips 3 years ago. The shoes are splitting at the seams now. She has no money to replace them. She wraps her feet in medical tape instead, a temporary solution to a permanent problem. Her college acceptance letter sits folded in her wallet, behind her ID, behind a photograph of her mother taken before the cancer, before everything broke into before and after. San Francisco State University, class of 2015. 8 years have passed. She makes Oliver breakfast with the last of the bread and a jar of peanut butter that is 3/4 gone. He eats slowly, chewing each bite carefully because he has learned, somehow, that food should not be rushed. A 6-year-old should not know this. A 6-year-old should believe food is infinite. Mama, Oliver says, his voice small and precise. Is Mr. Brennan coming back? Sofia's hand stops. She looks at her son, really looks at him. His dark eyes are too aware. His shoulders are too tense. No, sweetheart. Not today. It is a lie. Harold Brennan is always coming back. The diner opens at 7:16 a.m. on weekdays, and Sofia is there at 6:11, unlocking the back door with a key that is not hers but has been entrusted to her because she is reliable. Because she never steals. Because she shows up. Because she is the kind of person who asks for nothing and receives even less. Giuseppe's diner is a long, narrow space with a black and white checkered floor that is scuffed from 40 years of foot traffic. The lunch counter runs the entire length of the front window. 12 red vinyl booths line the opposite wall. Everything smells like industrial coffee and the ghost of 10,000 fried eggs. The neon sign outside reads Giuseppe's Diner Estate 1983 in letters that flicker pink and blue, visible for 3 blocks in every direction. Tony, the cook, arrives at 7:15. He is a man in his 60s with a thick mustache and tattoos running down both forearms that tell the story of a life lived before he chose the quiet safety of a kitchen. He nods at Sofia without speaking. They have worked together for 4 years. Words are not necessary. Sofia ties her apron around her waist. The pockets will fill with loose change throughout the day, coins that she will count carefully at midnight, coins that will add up to $30 or $40 if the day is good, if people are generous, if she does not upset anyone. $30 will buy another week's worth of pasta and rice. $30 will buy Oliver new socks because the ones he has have holes in the heels. $30 will not pay the eviction notice. Nothing will pay the eviction notice. The breakfast rush begins at 7:30. Construction workers in hard hats. Night shift nurses ending their shifts, exhausted and hungry. Elderly couples who have been coming to Giuseppe's for 30 years. Sofia moves between tables with the efficiency of someone who has performed the same motions 8,000 times. Coffee. Toast. Eggs over easy. Hash browns. Her feet burn inside the orthopedic shoes. Her lower back aches from standing. She has learned to smile through pain so convincing that customers leave slightly larger tips because she seems so genuinely happy to serve them eggs. By 11:56 a.m., the morning rush has ended. Sofia takes her break in the back, sitting on an upended milk crate next to the walk-in freezer. She counts the tips from the morning. $18.75. She writes the number in a small notebook where she tracks every penny, every day, every month. 8 years of these numbers. 8 years of adding them up and realizing they never add up to enough. At 7:08 p.m., the evening rush begins. Different customers now. Office workers. Couples on first dates. Families. Sofia refills water glasses and takes orders and brings plates of meatloaf and chicken fried steak to tables where people sit comfortably, without calculating whether they can afford the meal. It is 9:51 p.m. when the door opens and Harold Brennan walks in. He is a man in his 50s, the kind of man whose expensive suit cannot hide the calculation in his pale blue eyes. Gold rings sit heavy on his fingers, and he wears a watch that costs more than Sofia has made in her entire life. He has not shaved in 3 days. He is handsome in the way that predators can be handsome, the beauty that makes you lower your guard before you realize your mistake. Sofia sees him and her body goes rigid. She forces her feet to move toward his booth. She forces her mouth into a smile. "Mr. Brennan." "Good evening," she says, and her voice does not betray what her body knows. "Sofia." He settles into the booth and gestures for her to sit across from him. "We need to discuss your situation." She remains standing. It is safer to stand. Standing means she can leave quickly if necessary. "Sit, please," he says, and the politeness in his voice is a weapon. "I have been patient with you. Very patient. 8 years. Do you know how many landlords would have evicted you already?" "I'm working on it, Mr. Brennan," Sofia says. Her hands grip the edge of the table. "I just need a little more time." "Time." He smiles, and his teeth are very white. "Time is not what I am offering. You know what I want, Sofia. You have known for some time now." His hand reaches across the table toward hers. She pulls back, and for a moment, his expression hardens into something genuine, something cruel. He leans back and signals for water instead. "You have 7 days," he says softly. $65,000, or we discuss alternative arrangements. Arrangements that might be more favorable to both of us. He leaves a $5 tip on a $40 meal. The $5 bill sits on the table like an insult. Like a message. Like a threat. Sofia picks it up with shaking hands. At 11:27 p.m., her shift ends. She counts her tips in the back office, in the small space where Giuseppe himself once sat before the heart attack took him. $143. In 8 years of saving every tip, every bonus, every penny she did not spend on Oliver, she has accumulated exactly $9,217. She has a written list, updated quarterly. She knows the exact number. The eviction notice demands $65,300. She will never have this much money. She knows this the way you know something that is not hope but certainty. The kind of knowledge that lives in your bones. She puts on her coat, a thin thing that used to belong to someone else, purchased at a thrift store for $8. She walks to the back door. Outside, the November night is cold enough to steal breath. Rain falls in heavy drops that hit the pavement and burst into smaller drops, a cycle of breaking that continues infinitely. 3 blocks away, on the corner of Mission and 27th, Mr. Kim is locking up his convenience store. He is a man in his 70s who has owned this store for 30 years. Sofia has bought milk there. Oliver has bought candy there on his birthday. Mr. Kim always gives Oliver 1 extra piece for free, and he never asks why Sofia counts her pennies so carefully. Tonight, 3 men in dark coats follow Mr. Kim into the alley behind his store. Sofia sees this happen. She sees Mr. Kim's face shift from ordinary evening tiredness to fear. She sees the way the men move with the coordination of people who have done this before. She sees the first one raise his fist, and she knows what comes next is violence, and she knows that Mr. Kim is kind, and she knows that no one else is walking down this street at 11:17 p.m. on a Tuesday night in November. She walks toward the alley. The November dawn broke gray and merciless across San Francisco. Rafael Caruso stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his North Beach office, 43 stories above the city that bent to his will. He had not slept. His hands wrapped around a cup of coffee gone cold hours ago, and his dark eyes tracked the rain sliding down the glass like tears he refused to shed. Behind him, Carlo and Franco waited in the shadows near his mahogany desk. These men had worked for Rafael for 15 years. They knew the rhythm of his silence, the way it meant calculation, the way it meant someone's life was about to change. What they did not know was that Rafael's insomnia had nothing to do with territory or money. It had to do with his brother. "The collections are complete," Carlo said, breaking the quiet. His voice carried the careful tone of a man approaching a sleeping predator. "Restaurants paid. The dock operation moved 15 tons. Brennan's been squeezing the south neighborhoods again, landlord, not connected, but aggressive." Rafael did not turn from the window. Brennan was nothing. A mosquito. But Rafael had learned long ago that even mosquitoes could carry poison. And the Gambino situation? Rafael's voice was deep and solid like an oath. Franco stepped forward, tablet glowing in his hands. "Their shipment hits the port Friday. We have 3 options." "Handle it," Rafael said. He was not listening anymore. His mind had fractured into a memory he had spent for years trying to bury. Dante. His younger brother. Beautiful, weak, tempted by the ease of betrayal. For years ago, Dante had sold their family's distribution routes to the Gambino crew for $2 million. A single decision that unraveled 3 generations of work, 3 generations of blood, 3 generations of the code that Rafael's grandfather had carved into the foundation of this empire. Rafael had found Dante in a warehouse in Oakland on a Tuesday night in March. His brother had been crying, apologizing, saying he would fix it, saying he was sorry. Rafael had listened to every word. And then he had made the choice that separated him from every other man in this city. He chose survival. He chose the family over the individual. He chose the code over mercy. He chose to be the ghost that the underworld feared, the man who could execute anyone, including his own blood, and sleep soundly afterward. Except he had not slept soundly since. "Take the rest of the day," Rafael said to Carlo and Franco. "I'll send word on Brennan tomorrow." They exchanged a look, measured and careful, then left without another word. The door closed with a soft click that sounded like a lock turning. Rafael turned away from the window and walked to his private bar, a crystal decanter of bourbon waiting like an old friend. He poured 2 fingers, no ice. The burn went down like fire. Like punishment. Like penance that could never be paid. He did not pray. He had never prayed. By 3 o'clock that afternoon, Raphael was driving through his territories in a black Mercedes that cost more than most people's houses. The city unfolded beneath him in careful geometry, the shops that paid protection money, the restaurants that thrived under his umbrella, the fragile ecosystem of favor and fear that he had built brick by brick. He saw everything. The way shop owners straightened when they saw his car. The way money flowed like water through channels he had constructed. The way this entire city breathed because he allowed it to breathe. And it felt like nothing. At 8:30 p.m., Raphael sat in his office again, reviewing spreadsheets that represented the movement of $3 million that day. Carlo knocked, entered, reported that Harold Brennan was indeed making moves, aggressively, moving into neighborhoods that were not his to touch, making demands that exceeded his authority. Normally, Raphael would have sent a message. A simple message, delivered by men in dark coats, usually containing violence. Instead, Raphael decided to take a drive. The insomnia was winning. Sleep had become a stranger, and Raphael had learned to navigate the city at 3 in the morning like a ghost navigating the living world. The November rain fell hard enough to sound like applause on the windshield. Neon signs reflected in the wet pavement, fractured, beautiful, broken. He was driving south on Mission Street when he saw the alley. 3 men in dark coats, a small elderly man backed against a brick wall, fists raised. A convenience store behind them, lights still on, the name painted in faded letters, Kim's Market. Raphael slowed the car. He should have kept driving. This was not his business. This was small-time predation, the kind of thing that happened 1,000 times a night in 1,000 cities, and Raphael Caruso did not save people. He did not intervene. He did not believe in rescue. And then he saw her. A woman in a thin coat that did not belong to her, moving into the space between violence and its victim. She was small, maybe 5'4", with dark hair that hung in wet strands from the November rain. Her face was sharp with fear, but her body was steady. She stood between the armed men and the old shop owner like she was made of something that could not break. Like a blade. Like a blade wrapped in ice. The men hesitated. One of them laughed, that sound that men made when they encountered something they did not understand. Raphael watched the woman's hand curl into a fist. She said something, her voice too small to carry from this distance, but the conviction in her body spoke louder than any words. The men moved toward her anyway. Raphael's hand was on the door handle before his mind caught up with the decision. But before he had to move, the men seemed to reconsider, muttering, backing away, dissolving into the rainy night like smoke. The woman stood there, shaking, and the old man came toward her, putting his hand on her shoulder, thanking her in a voice thick with gratitude. She did not seem to hear him. She walked back out onto the street, and Raphael saw her face clearly for the first time in the glow of a street lamp. Young, maybe late 20s, though she carried the weight of someone much older. Exhausted in a way that no amount of sleep could fix. And there were tears on her face, but she did not seem to know she was crying. She walked away. Raphael let her go. But something in his chest, something he thought had died with Dante, stirred like a muscle waking after years of paralysis. He sat in his car for 5 minutes, watching the rain, and then he made a decision that would echo through everything that came next. He told Carlo to find out everything about her. Meanwhile, across the city in a penthouse apartment overlooking the bay, Evelyn Blackwell sat at her mahogany desk with a phone pressed to her ear. Her platinum hair was perfectly styled, a designer suit pressed to geometric perfection, and her eyes were empty in the way that eyes become empty when cruelty has been perfected into art. The CPS caseworker is scheduled for tomorrow morning, she said into the phone. Her voice was like honey poured over broken glass. 9 o'clock, exactly. I've provided her with a detailed report about the living conditions, the evidence of neglect, the danger to the minor. Harold Brennan's voice came back through the speaker, eager as a dog. So she loses the kid. Harold. Evelyn's voice suggested she was speaking to someone with the intelligence of furniture. You're thinking like a landlord. I'm thinking like someone who understands that humiliation is a much more effective tool than desperation. She hung up without waiting for him to respond. On her desk sat a manila folder with photographs. Sofia Pierce's face in every shot, at the diner, walking home, buying groceries, clutching a boy's hand in the rain. The folder had been compiled by a private investigator over the course of 4 days. Every movement tracked, every weakness identified, every pressure point marked with a red pen. Evelyn had learned long ago that the best way to destroy someone was to make them believe they had destroyed themselves. She opened her email and began typing a message to the CPS caseworker, her fingers moving like a pianist playing a masterpiece composed entirely of ruin. At 6:30 p.m. the next evening, Sofia Pierce's phone rang for the first time. The voice on the other end was controlled and calm, the kind of calm that suggested a man who had learned to speak through violence and therefore no longer needed to. The kind of voice that made your spine straighten without permission. "Ms. Pierce, my name is Rafael Caruso. I'd like to speak with you about your situation with Harold Brennan. Can we meet tonight?" She should have said no. Every instinct that had kept her alive for 28 years screamed at her to refuse. But something in that voice carried a weight that demanded response. "How do you know about Brennan?" Her own voice sounded like a child's. "I make it my business to know everything that happens in this city." He paused. "Giuseppe's restaurant. 8 o'clock. Come alone." The line went dead. She had 45 minutes to become someone who deserved to be in that restaurant. At 8 o'clock exactly, Sofia pushed through the glass doors of Giuseppe's. The hostess looked her up and down. Sofia's dress was 7 years old, purchased at a thrift store for $12, and it showed every year of that age. The carpet beneath her feet was so thick it felt like walking on clouds she had never felt. Candles flickered on white tablecloths. The sound of classical music drifted from hidden speakers. Then Rafael Caruso stood from a booth in the back, and everything else became background. He was 6'3", with shoulders broad enough to cast a shadow. His suit was charcoal gray, tailored so perfectly that it seemed less like clothing and more like second skin. Dark Italian features, sharp and carved. And his eyes were storm gray, and they held the kind of intelligence that made you feel like he had already read your entire life story before you opened your mouth. A scar ran along his left jaw from temple to chin, a mark of something terrible, something survived. "Sofia." He said her name like he had been waiting his whole life to say it. "Thank you for coming." She slid into the booth across from him. The leather was soft enough to be cruel. "You're Rafael Caruso." It was not a question. She had asked Carlo when he found her at the diner, had looked up the name on her cracked phone screen. The images showed a man in black, always moving through shadows, always surrounded by men in suits. A man who appeared in crime reports like a ghost appears in a haunted house, felt, never proven. "I am." He gestured, and a waiter appeared as if summoned by magic. Raphael ordered wine, something Italian, something that cost more than Sofia's monthly rent, and water for her without asking. "You stepped between armed men and Mr. Kim last night." "Why?" Sofia's hands were shaking. She placed them flat on the table. They were going to hurt him. Someone had to do something. "Most people look away," Raphael said. His voice was soft, which made it more terrifying. "They rationalize. They convince themselves it is not their responsibility. You did not." "Because I know what it's like when no one helps." The words came out before she could stop them. "When you need help more than you need air and everyone walks past you like you're invisible." Raphael studied her face like he was memorizing it. Like he was photographing her for evidence in a trial that mattered more than law. "Tell me about Brennan," he said. The words came pouring out, the late rent notices, the mounting pressure, the way he had touched her shoulder in the hallway, his hand lingering like a threat, the way he had explained very clearly what would happen if the money did not materialize. The $65,000. The 7 days that became 5, then 3, then nothing. The conversation that was not quite a conversation but felt like standing in front of a firing squad and being asked to choose the ammunition. "He wants you to trade," Raphael said. It was not a question. He wants me to understand that I don't have options. Sofia reached for the water glass with both hands. It was shaking. I've saved $9,000 over 8 years. Every penny. I was going to use it for Oliver's education. For his future. But there is no future if we have nowhere to live. The waiter brought food she did not remember ordering. Pasta that smelled like heaven. Bread that was still warm. Tiramisu that looked like something painted by an artist. Sofia realized she had not eaten since yesterday morning. She ate like someone in a fever dream, then caught herself and stopped, embarrassed. Raphael did not comment on this. He simply watched her. "When did you last have a real meal?" he asked. "I feed Oliver first." "Always." She set down her fork carefully. "I made $143 yesterday. 60 goes to groceries for the week. The rest goes to the impossible pile. I have $9,000 saved. I need $65,000 in 7 days. The math doesn't work." She did not expect him to respond. She was simply stating facts. Facts as immutable as gravity, as certain as death. "Tell me about Oliver," Raphael said instead. Her face transformed. The exhaustion, the fear, the weight of every impossible choice, it all fell away for a moment, and she pulled out her phone with a cracked screen. The photo showed a dark-haired boy with a gap-toothed smile, dinosaur printed on his shirt, pure joy radiating from the image. 6 years old, she whispered. He wants to be a paleontologist. He reads about fossils every night before bed. He's brilliant. I've kept him in the Lincoln School because they have a real library. The other schools have tablets and corporate curricula. He reads actual books. His father. Gone. Since before Oliver was born. Better that way. Raphael was quiet for a long moment. Then, the debt will be handled. By tomorrow morning, Brennan will no longer be a problem. Sofia laughed, but there was no joy in it. Debts like that don't disappear. Not for people like me. They do if I make them disappear. She stared at him. Why would you help me? I'm nobody. You're someone who stands between monsters and victims at 3 in the morning, Raphael said. His voice was so quiet she had to lean forward to hear it. That's not nobody, Sofia. That's everything. The drive to her apartment was silent except for the sound of rain on the windshield. Raphael's black Mercedes moved through the November night like a predator gliding through water. When he pulled up to her building, crumbling brick, broken security door, windows that looked like eyes half closed, he did not turn off the engine. "How did you know about me?" she asked. "Really? I saw you stand when you should have run." He turned to face her, and in the darkness, the scar on his jaw became invisible, and he looked almost human. "For years ago, my brother sold everything I built to people who wanted to destroy us. I had to choose between mercy and survival. I chose survival. I had to kill the person I loved most to protect what mattered." He paused. The rain drummed against the car like 1,000 fingers. "Since then, I've been surrounded by people who would sell anyone for the right price. And then I saw you risk everything for a stranger. Maybe I need to remember that kind of person still exists." Sofia wanted to say something, anything, but the words would not come. She opened the car door and stepped out into the rain. "Sofia." His voice stopped her. "After tomorrow, you won't be nobody. Not ever again." She walked into the building without looking back, and Raphael Caruso drove back into the November night, back to his empire, back to his ghosts. But what he did not know was that a woman named Evelyn Blackwell had already placed a call to Child Protective Services. The caseworker was coming in the morning. And she was coming with the machinery of the state behind her. The November rain hammers against the cracked window like 1,000 fingers desperate to break through glass. Sofia Pierce holds Oliver against her chest, feeling his small heartbeat against hers, this perfect innocent thing she brought into a world she cannot protect him from. The cold seeps through the walls of her studio apartment, she can see her breath in her own home. Her phone shows $143.67 in her checking account. 24 hours until Harold Brennan demands $65,000 in cash, or she and Oliver are out on the street. The math spins in her head, each number a blade cutting deeper. $9,000 saved over 8 years of double shifts, of bleeding feet and fake smiles and serving men who left dollar coins instead of dollar bills. The numbers have never worked. They will not work now. She thinks about Brennan's offer, how his hand touched her cheek, how his voice dropped when he said the debt could all go away. She thinks about the scars on her back, a map of hell she has carried since Oliver's father, the permanent reminder that men like that always win. She thinks about the torn college acceptance letter hidden in a showbox under her mattress, the life she could have had if she had been born with money or luck or anything other than this grinding poverty that makes you choose between feeding your child and keeping a roof overhead. Oliver stirs against her neck. His small hand reaches up, touching her face, wiping her tears with chubby fingers. Oliver says, "Mama, why are you crying?" Sofia's voice breaks. "I'm not, baby. I'm just tired." Oliver, 6 years old, sees through the lie like he sees through everything. "Are they going to take me away?" "Like Daddy." Sofia holds him tighter. "Never. I promise you. Never." But the promise tastes like ash in her mouth because she knows that sometimes promises are all a mother has, and sometimes that is not enough. Her phone rings at 2 in the afternoon. Unknown number. Sofia almost does not answer. She does. A voice, deep and careful, speaks her name. Sofia Pierce. She does not recognize it. "Who is this?" "My name is Rafael Caruso. I need you to listen very carefully. Do not go anywhere. Do not open your door for anyone but me. Can you do that?" She hangs up. Her hands shake as she paces the small apartment, Oliver asking questions she cannot answer. "Who was that? Why did he sound scared? Is someone coming?" "Mama, I don't like when you're scared." At 6 in the evening, she hears engines outside. Multiple engines. She goes to the window and sees black SUVs, their windows tinted so dark you cannot see inside. Men in dark suits and FBI windbreakers move with military precision toward Brennan's office 2 floors below. Sofia pulls Oliver away from the window, her heart hammering against her ribs like it is trying to escape her chest. The raid unfolds in minutes that feel like hours. Through her window, Sofia watches federal agents drag Harold Brennan from his desk in his undershirt, papers flying like snow. Brennan screams, his face bright red, veins bulging on his neck, his voice cracking with desperation. "You can't do this. I have rights. I know people." An FBI agent, calm as stone, reads him his rights. Racketeering. Wire fraud. Extortion. Conspiracy. The words hang in the November air like a sentence from God. Oliver watches from Sofia's arms. "Mama, what's happening?" Sofia does not answer because she does not understand either. Across the city at the same moment, at Evelyn Blackwell's Pacific Heights mansion, another team arrives during a charity gala. 200 society guests in evening wear and jewels that cost more than Sofia's annual rent stand frozen as the FBI walks through the entrance. A lead agent, loud enough for everyone to hear, announces Evelyn's name alongside words like money laundering, bribery of public officials, conspiracy. The room goes absolutely silent. 200 phones record as Evelyn Blackwell, 63 years old, silver hair perfectly coiffed, wearing a black dress that cost $8,000, is placed in handcuffs. Evelyn's jaw clenches. Her eyes bulge wide as dinner plates. "This is a mistake. Do you know who I am?" The agent does not hesitate. "Yes, ma'am. And so do your lawyers. They are being arrested right now." The footage spreads across every news channel by dawn. Not death. Too quick, too easy, too merciful. Systematic destruction, federal prison sentences of 40 years each, every asset seized, every connection burned to ash. At 9 in the evening, Sofia hears a knock on her door. 3 clear taps. She checks the peephole and sees a man standing in the hallway, his silhouette familiar from a November night that changed everything. Raphael Caruso stands in her doorway wearing a black cashmere coat worth more than a year of her old rent. His dark eyes carry the weight of 1,000 decisions, and in the lamplight, the scar running from his eye to his cheekbone becomes a map of his own survival. Behind him, Marco and Franco wait in the hallway, their faces carefully neutral. Sofia opens the door fully. Oliver peeks from behind her legs, curious about this man who smells like expensive cologne and rain. "What did you do?" Sofia asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Raphael steps inside, his movements deliberate and careful, a man who has learned to move through the world like a predator that knows it is always being watched. The FBI had been building a case against Blackwell and Brennan for 18 months, he says, his voice deep and solid like an oath. They had financial records, testimony from victims, evidence of corruption reaching into 3 city agencies. They needed one final piece, a direct connection between the two of them. I provided that connection. Sofia's hands shake. The debt? Gone. Brennan's properties are being seized by the federal government. Every lease he issued is void. The building you live in belongs to the city now, pending redistribution. You and Oliver are safe. She stares at him, this man who moved heaven and earth for a woman he met 3 days ago, and something breaks open in her chest like ice cracking under spring sun. Tears spill down her face, but these tears are different from the ones before. These tears are relief. These are the tears of a woman who has been drowning and suddenly feels ground beneath her feet. Why, she asks. Why would you do this? Raphael looks at Oliver, this small boy watching with eyes too old for his face, eyes that have learned too early that the world is not safe. Because every child deserves a mother who does not have to choose between feeding him and keeping a roof overhead, Raphael says. Because you stood between a stranger and violence when you had nothing to gain. And because I spent 15 years building an empire that means nothing if I cannot use it to protect people like you. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a piece of paper, yellowed with age, folded so many times the creases have created thin tears in the fabric. It is a college acceptance letter addressed to Sofia Pierce, dated 8 years ago. Sofia gasps. How did you? Your apartment has very little privacy when you are part of my world, Raphael says. I read about your dream. I read what you gave up when Oliver was born. I want you to know that you do not have to choose anymore. Oliver tugs on Sofia's sleeve. Mama, who is this man? Sofia looks at this man, this powerful, dangerous, impossibly gentle man, and she realizes that she does not have an answer. Not yet. But she is beginning to understand that sometimes the most unexpected people become exactly what you need them to be. Someone good, Sofia says finally, and Raphael's eyes close for just a moment, as if her words are a prayer he never thought he would hear. Carlo and Franco exchange a look in the hallway, a look that says they have never seen their boss stand in a cramped apartment on the edge of the city, speaking to a single mother with such tenderness. In 15 years, they have never seen him like this. The rain continues to fall outside, steady and relentless, washing the streets clean of the November night that almost destroyed her. And Sofia Pierce, for the first time in 8 years, allows herself to believe that real strength is not found in never falling, but in always standing back up. Sofia sits at her small kitchen table at 2 o'clock in the morning. The apartment is quiet now, so quiet she can hear the refrigerator humming in the corner, the distant sound of a siren moving through the San Francisco streets below. Oliver sleeps down the hallway, safe, finally safe. She pulls a piece of paper toward her and picks up a pen. Her hand trembles as she writes. Dear Raphael, she begins, the words coming slowly, each letter an act of surrender and necessity mixed together. She sets the pen down and stares at what she has written. Outside, the November rain continues its steady percussion against the window. She picks the pen up again. I do not know how to thank someone for giving you your life back. I was drowning, and you threw me a rope when you could have walked past like everyone else did. You saved me and Oliver when you had no reason to. You asked for nothing. You expected nothing. And that is exactly why I have to leave. Sofia pauses. The words feel like knives, each one cutting into something tender inside her chest. She continues writing, her voice barely above a whisper as she reads the words aloud to herself. You live in a world I do not understand. A dangerous world. I have seen the way Carlo and Franco watch the shadows when you walk. I have seen the scars on your hands, the weight you carry in your eyes. I know what you are, Raphael, even if you have only shown me kindness. Even if you have sat on the floor and colored dinosaurs with my son like you had nowhere else in the world to be. But knowing what you are means knowing the danger that follows you like a shadow that refuses to leave. She reaches for the water glass beside her, takes a long drink. The apartment feels colder now, the walls closing in. Oliver deserves a normal life. School, friends, soccer practice, boring parent-teacher conferences. He deserves a mother who is not looking over her shoulder wondering if his connection to a man like you will paint a target on him. He deserves to grow up without fear. And I cannot give him that if I stay. Sofia sets the pen down. She looks toward the hallway where Oliver sleeps. She can see the edge of his bed from where she sits, the way his small foot sticks out from under the blanket. I am falling for you, Raphael. Maybe I fell that first night at Giuseppe's when you asked about Oliver and actually listened like his answer meant something. Maybe it was when you told me about your brother and I saw the pain you carry behind all that power. Maybe it started the moment you stepped between me and the world and asked nothing in return. But that is exactly why I have to go. The tears come now, silent, rolling down her face without sound. She does not wipe them away. She simply continues writing. My sister in Portland has offered us a place to stay. We are leaving tomorrow morning. Please do not look for us. Please let us disappear into the normal, boring, safe life that Oliver needs. You gave me that chance by stepping in. Now I am taking it. I am using the gift you gave me to save my son from the consequences of my own heart. Sofia stops. Her hand aches. She looks at the words on the page and they blur through the tears. You have shown me that good men still exist. Real good, not the kind that disappears when no one is watching. You have shown me that strength is not about hurting people, it is about protecting them. You have shown me what it means to choose love even when love costs you something. I hope you find peace, Raphael. Real peace, not just the quiet that comes from power. I hope you remember that there is more to life than survival. I hope you choose differently than I did. She signs the letter with just her name. Sofia. No closing words, no final declarations. Just her name on paper, a signature on a goodbye. Her hands shake as she folds the letter. The creases are uneven, jagged. She addresses the envelope to his office, her handwriting small and precise despite the trembling. She places it in her coat pocket. Tomorrow, she will mail it from the corner mailbox before catching the bus to the Greyhound station. Tomorrow, Oliver will wake up and she will tell him they are going on an adventure to meet Aunt Maria. He will ask if they can bring his dinosaur crayons and his favorite blanket. She will say yes to everything. She will pack 2 suitcases, everything they own fits easily into 2 worn suitcases that cost her $6 at a thrift store 3 years ago. At 5:30 in the morning, she sets her alarm. She does not sleep. She sits in the darkness and watches the clock change numbers. Oliver will wake at 6. She will dress him quickly. They will walk to the bus stop together, and she will mail the letter from the corner mailbox without him seeing. By 8 o'clock, they will be on the bus heading south toward Portland. By tomorrow, Raphael will find the letter waiting on his desk and he will understand that sometimes the people we save us in return by leaving. But when she steps onto the street at 6:15 with Oliver's small hand in hers, she stops. The morning mist clings to everything, turning the city into a place that looks unreal, like a photograph of itself. And standing by the mailbox, the exact mailbox where she planned to mail her letter, stands Raphael Caruso. He is not wearing his expensive coat. He wears a dark jacket, his hair still wet from rain or sleep. He holds an envelope identical to hers. She can tell immediately that he has not slept. The space around him feels different, not dangerous, but heavy with something she cannot name. Oliver tugs on her sleeve. "Mama, is that the man from yesterday?" Sofia cannot speak. The letter in her pocket suddenly feels like it weighs 1,000 pounds. Raphael's eyes move from her face to the envelope in her hand to Oliver and back again. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, rougher than she has ever heard it. "You were going to leave." "I have to," Sofia says. The words come out broken. "For Oliver." "You know I have to." Raphael holds up his envelope. "I wrote you a letter too. Want to know what it says?" She nods, unable to trust her voice. "It says that I spent 15 years building walls so high nothing could touch me. It says I chose survival over love once and it made me into someone I barely recognize. Someone cold. Someone who moved through the world like a ghost with a ledger instead of a man with a heart." He steps closer, and the morning mist swirls around him. "It says that watching you stand up for strangers, work yourself to exhaustion for your son, face down men twice your size with nothing but your voice, it reminded me who I wanted to be before everything went dark." Sofia's hands shake. "Your world is too dangerous. Oliver is the reason I have been planning my exit for 2 years," Raphael says. The words fall like stones into still water. "I have legitimate businesses ready. Distance from the violence. Connections being transferred. I just never had a reason to follow through until now." "You do not even know me," Sofia whispers. "Not really. Not beyond what you have seen." Raphael reaches into his pocket. For a moment, Sofia's heart stops. But he pulls out something small and worn. It is her college acceptance letter. The one she thought was lost. The one she has carried in her pocket every day for 8 years, the edges soft from handling, the creases so deep they have started to tear. "I know you count tips at 3 in the morning and give half to the cook with the sick wife," Raphael says. His eyes are fixed on her face like she is the only thing in the world that matters. "I know you have scars on your back that you think I have not noticed when you reach for something and your shirt shifts. I know you take day-old bread home and tell Oliver it is a treasure hunt. I know you kept this letter even though it represents everything you gave up. I know you are the strongest person I have ever met. That is enough. That is more than enough." She is crying openly now, and she does not care. "I am so tired of being strong." Raphael steps closer. He does not touch her, but she can feel the warmth radiating from him, can smell the rain on his jacket. "Then let me be strong for both of us. Just for a while. Until you catch your breath." Oliver taps Sofia's arm. "Mama, did we miss the bus?" Raphael looks down at the boy, his expression shifting into something tender that makes Sofia's throat close. "How do you feel about playing hooky from school today? I know a place that makes the best hot chocolate in the city. The kind with real chocolate, not the powder stuff." Oliver looks up at Sofia. She nods, unable to speak. The 3 of them walk through the morning mist together, 2 unread letters forgotten in their hands. The rain begins again, soft and steady, washing the street clean of the November night that almost destroyed them all. 6 months later, they sit in the private booth at Giuseppe's restaurant. Oliver colors with his dinosaur crayons at the corner of the table. Sofia wears a name tag from San Francisco State University. She is enrolled finally, using the college fund Raphael set up, the one she tried to refuse and he quietly arranged anyway. Oliver attends a good school now. He has friends. He laughs without fear. Raphael watches her with an expression that has become familiar in these 6 months. It is the expression of someone who has found something they did not know they were searching for. "Look," Oliver says, holding up his drawing. It is a T-Rex eating a volcano. Sofia smiles. "That is beautiful, baby." Raphael leans forward seriously. The teeth are very accurate. Impressive scale work for someone your age. Oliver beams with pride and returns to his drawing. The restaurant around them hums with evening voices, the soft clink of glasses, the distant sound of the kitchen. Outside the window, San Francisco glitters against the night sky. Sofia reaches across the table and takes Raphael's hand. His fingers close around hers gently, carefully, like he is still learning that he is allowed to hold something precious without breaking it. Real strength is not found in never falling, Sofia says softly. But in always standing back up, Raphael finishes. It has become their phrase, their truth, the thing they whisper to each other in the darkness when the old fears try to return. She looks at him, this man who moved heaven and earth, who transformed his world, who chose differently than the path he was walking. And she realizes that some people come into your life not to save you, but to remind you that you have always had the power to save yourself. The rain continues outside, steady and clean, washing the city new. If this story moved your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe now for more stories of courage and redemption. Drop a comment below telling us what you would have done in Sofia's position. Would you have left or stayed? We have new stories every single day. Tomorrow, we bring you something even more shocking, when a janitor discovers an abandoned baby in a subway station, and the man who arrives claiming to be the father is the last person anyone expected. You will not want to miss it. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. We wish you good health, a joyful life, and days filled with peace and happiness. No matter how hard life gets, remember that after the rain, the sky clears. We will see you again in the next video. Goodbye.